Adventurers, welcome back to another episode of Underdark Cellars. We are concluding our journey through Epic Universe by tackling all 3 of the mac and cheese cones from the Isle of Berk. So in my research, I found that Universal actually has a blog. I think it's blog.discoveruniversal.com or something like that. Anyway, but they had a blog on how they made these viral mac and cheese cones. And it was in the blog that I learned that it was not in French bread, but instead Cuban bread that was like the base for the mac and cheese cone. And they're very different. Cuban bread has kind of like a porky flavor, it has a flakier crust, and it has a lighter texture inside as opposed to French bread. So it's really important that I got that right. So I'm actually using a recipe from La Segunda, which is a Cuban restaurant in Florida. I'd never made it before, and I did not want to muck up like the base for the Cuban bread. So I'm going to put the recipe in the document, but I'm also going to link it in the comments below because it's La Segunda's recipe. We're going to work on our pulled pork. I'm using bone-in pork shoulder with chili powder, cayenne pepper, smoked paprika, and garlic powder. And I'm just going to rub that in there to make sure that the smoke alarm on the Instant Pot doesn't go off, because I am pressure cooking this. I am going to add just a little bit of water and then liquid smoke and Worcestershire sauce. Now we're moving on to our peanut bacon jam. That is actually where the PB and J part of the mac and cheese cone comes in. We're going to crisp up some smoked bacon and render the fat down as much as possible. We're going to remove that fat, and then we're going to add in our peanuts, and we're going to cook them in a little bit of fat for like 10 minutes. Peanuts, they're not going to soften a lot. I'm thinking maybe what I should have done was pulverize them in a food processor. So with that in mind, because I had no idea what direction to take because I'd never eaten it before. So with that, we're going to add in some espresso, some apple cider vinegar, some bourbon, some maple syrup, and garlic powder. We're going to stir this down until it's nice and jammy. Moving on to the chimichurri, it's very easy. A cat could do it. We're going to take equal parts parsley, the curled parsley, not Italian flat leaf, and cilantro. We're going to finely mince those, put those in a bowl, along with some garlic, some red chili flake, some dried oregano, and salt. And then we're going to toss that together, and then we're going to slowly add olive oil. I don't like to add all of my olive oil at once. I have a specific texture I like my chimichurri to be. Adding a little bit at a time helps achieve that. Now, if we were doing fried chicken in the Nashville style chicken mac and cheese cone, we would be putting like kind of a gritty oil-based sauce directly on the chicken, but because we're doing a pulled chicken, I had to make something that would kind of spread relatively evenly throughout the pulled chicken. So we're doing kind of a spin on a Nashville hot sauce, but I added a little bit of water to be able to emulsify it to make it go a little further. And it's not going to be as gritty as like a Nashville hot would be, where it would just be a blend of dry spices and chilies in an oil. Moving on to the Harissa barbecue sauce, I just kind of did a standard barbecue sauce base with ketchup, tomato paste, molasses. I also added some bourbon for a little bit of oomph, and then a ton of harissa and some other seasonings. Now, for the pulled chicken, I avoid using chicken breast because I find that it can get very, very dry. So we're doing 2 things to mitigate that dry. I mean, no one wants dry chicken. That's gross. So we're using 1, chicken thighs, and 2, we're poaching them. So we're going to take our chicken thighs and put them in cold water, and then we're going to bring everything up to a rolling boil. We're going to turn off the heat, and then we're going to let the chicken come to temperature. It needs to be like 175, 180 degrees for it to be done. And then once the pork is done, we're going to shred it. I use a hand mixer, put in the barbecue sauce, and then we're going to shred the chicken. We're going to put in the Nashville hot sauce. To wrap up the Cuban bread, we're going to take our dough that has now doubled in size. We're going to divide that into 3 sections. We're going to roll those into balls, allow those to rise for another hour, and then we're going to shape those into my attempt at the cone base. I wanted to visualize dividing this in half, so I kind of needed a pointy end, but in hindsight, I think I made them a little too narrow and not wide enough. And then once those are done, we're just gonna set those aside while we work on the cheese sauce. Now we're doing a very simple roux, equal parts of butter and flour, and then we're going to add in some cold whole milk. But this is the kicker. I wanted a really creamy mac and cheese because I knew I would have leftovers, and I did not want gritty mac and cheese the next day. So you're gonna use more heavy cream than you think, and then you're gonna put in your three cheese blend, with grated Gruyere, grated mild cheddar, and grated medium cheddar, and we're gonna slowly melt that. We don't want this to heat up super fast. We want things to be really, really melty and smooth. We're gonna add in a little bit of Dijon mustard to help as an emulsifier to keep things nice and shiny. But like, look at that. There's not a lump in there. That's delicious. We're gonna pour that over our cooked elbow macaroni and stir that in. And it looks a little goopy, but trust the process. Trust the process. This was the perfect mac and cheese. Okay, here's how you're going to assemble these. So you're going to core out the center of your Cuban bread, and you're going to layer mac and cheese, the protein of your choice, whether it's the chicken or the pork. If you're just doing the mac and cheese, just fill that straight up. But you're going to alternate layers of mac and cheese and your protein, and then you're going to add the toppings on top. Now, I personally really, really liked these. Even without the bread, it's not a necessity. But granted, I'm a sucker for a good loaded mac and cheese. This was a super fun project. I really enjoyed doing this. I think the only downside to the We Have Epic Universe at home is I wasn't able to accurately compare the flavors in the park to what I did. Because again, this was all based off of images and description, because some of us, can't afford to go in this economy because the world is crazy and everything is collapsing. Anyway, so that was fun. I'm looking forward to doing more of my regular content, getting back into the anime swing of things. We're going to start back up with some Spy Family here soon, because that is coming out in October, season 3, and I'm so excited to see the Forgers again. But that brings us to the end of the episode. If you liked what you saw, smash that like button. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, drop those down below. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. We are almost at 800, which is kind of crazy. Ring the bell for notifications. Adventurers, as always, make sure you do something nice for someone else. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.